Hi everyone, this is just a quick review and overview of the worksheet that we started on Friday. So like I said on the instructions, if you were not in class on Friday for this activity, just email me so I can send you the document for this. So let's start with the carbohydrates. So if you haven't seen this before, just go watch the video, or you can go to the link up there to help fill it out. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through it per row, and then we'll talk about it as I go through it. So just a quick reminder, monomers are one piece, right? And then the polymer is multiple pieces. So if you just think about a Lego, right? One piece of Lego is going to be your monomer, and then multiple pieces of Lego, if you stack them up together or put them sideways, that is a polymer. That's what they are. So to fill out this table, the weird thing is the macromolecule is actually the polymer. So if I just go through, that's not a fit, but if you just go through and put these as the polymer, it's really just another name for a macromolecule, right? So just in case you're not aware, macro means big, right? So this is a very big molecule because it's made up of multiple pieces. So the elements that carbohydrates have, as you guys can see from the name, this one's pretty easy because it actually tells you carbo and then hydrate, right? Carb meaning carbon, and then hydrate like water. So that's going to be hydrogen and oxygen. So the mnemonic for that is CHO, so CHO, right? One piece of a carbohydrate is called a actually I'm going to do this sideways because it's not going to fit. It's a very long word. Monosaccharide. This is supposed to be an R, saccharide, like that, right? Mono meaning one, and saccharide meaning sugar. So if you ever decide to go into the science field, you might see something like disaccharide, which is two sugars. You might see something like polysaccharide, poly meaning many, and then saccharide meaning sugar, right? So many sugars. So that's something you want to know. But this one, just one piece, is a monosaccharide. The diagram, all I really need you guys to be able to distinguish is the shape. So anything that looks like this, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 sides, right, is a hexagon. Sometimes they're also a pentagon like this. So anything that looks like that, right? Sometimes they're attached together with a line. Doesn't really matter where the line is for our sake, right? But sometimes they're attached like that. If you watch the video, the one that they had on there was, there was like 3 of them, right? And they're attached together, something like this, right? But anything that looks like a hexagon, whether it's by itself or all together, right? One of these, so this one would be a monosaccharide, right? But this whole thing would be a polysaccharide or a carbohydrate, right? Examples of carbs, like what we eat all the time, got bread and pasta. And the video explains all of this really well. So again, I'm just helping you fill out the rest. Just make sure you watch the video again so they can give you more information about what this is, because this is replacing the lecture, right? We're not actually going to lecture about it. This activity was meant for it to replace that. Function of this one is quick energy, right? So the video was talking about how when marathoners go on their marathon, the night before they do something called carbo load, right? Because you want to be able to access that energy very quickly. So things that are very sugary, you might have had some experience with like a sugar high when you were little, or maybe you still experience that now, right? Very sugary things, that's carbohydrates, right? So when you get a sugar high, your body is breaking down all of these carbohydrates into quick energy. That's why you're super hyper, right? So that's carbohydrates. Next one, we have lipids. So the elements are the same, And what really distinguishes them from each other is going to be the structure. So we'll get to that later. So same thing, it's still CHO, right? This one is kind of weird because it doesn't actually have a monomer. It doesn't actually have a monomer, but the video gives us glycerol and fatty acids, right? So for our 6, we'll go with that. But technically, in biology, they don't really have a monomer. The structure of a lipid, the one that we're going to use most commonly, is something that looks like this, right? It's kind of like a stick figure, right? It has a what they call a head. This is called a head, and these are called tails, right? So examples of that was butter and oil. A little bit later, we're going to come across a word called phospholipids. So I'm just going to throw that out there, but this is a phospholipid, right? And then the function of that, the video mentioned long-term energy, and it also mentioned membranes. Right? So if you were there on Friday, I made the joke about if somebody called you fat, you're not fat, you're just full of energy. That's what that means. Because back in the day, way before, when we were hunter and gatherers, our body didn't really know when we were gonna eat next. So what it did was, whenever we ate, it would use some for energy right now, but then it'll store some of it for fat later, so that if you don't eat for a couple days, that's okay, because it's just gonna use the fat storage in your body, right? But now, because we don't really hunt for our food and we sit around most of the time, all of the food that we eat still gets stored. Our body still has that same idea and same function of, oh, okay, I don't know when they'll eat next, so I'll just store it for later, right? And that's why when you're exercising, if you really want to lose a lot of fat, you have to do high intensity workouts to really use up and tap into that stored energy, right? So that's that. Next is going to be proteins. This one is going to be different. So it's still going to be the same. It's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But this time we have nitrogen in there as well. Right? So this one is CHON. So we have CHO-CHO-CHON. The monomer for a protein is called an amino acid. Right? And then the structure for this one, we're just going to make it simple. It's kind of like either a chain of circles like this, or something globular, but it's like one line, something like that, right? Protein, I'm sure you guys know, you get protein from meat, right? Beans also do have protein. If you have like protein shakes, stuff like that, right? Those are all sources of protein. And protein has a lot of different functions, which we'll get to later. But some of just the big ones that you might know, the video mentioned enzymes, right? We'll talk about that. They can also be used as antibodies. Those are the ones that help detect disease if you are sick, right? They can also be structural, right? And a lot of other things, but we'll keep it simple like that, right? So we'll come back to those as we go through the semester, but those are just some of the things that proteins do. Last one is nucleic acid. This one is also going to be a little bit different. So still carbon, still hydrogen, right? Still oxygen, still nitrogen, and then one more is P, which is phosphorus. Right, so this one is chomped. So instead of it being like an M, it's an N, right? So the nucleic acid, your monomer is going to be a nucleotide, right? And for our sake, you're looking at a 3-piece thing, right? It's going to be something that has a pentagon that's attached to a hexagon. I did that a little bit weird. Attached to a circle, something like that. And we'll talk about what that means when we get to DNA. But you might also see it as a DNA because that's the function of that, right? So here's a DNA, something like that, right? And anything that is living has nucleic acids on it. In the video, I think they talked about strawberries, right? So strawberry is living, right? We eat it. It's a living thing. Things like spinach, before you boil it, if you're gonna boil broccoli or veggies or whatever, before you do that, if you just eat it raw, they do have DNA in them, right? Fruits, stuff like that. And then the function of that one is genetic information. I guess I could also put DNA and RNA as an example on here. Right, so that is the chart. Make sure you fill it in. A good study tool for this one, because I love asking this question. Right, I'm going to tell you guys it right now. This is a very, very important worksheet. Right, so what you can do is you can actually cut up all of these boxes individually and see if you can match them together. Right, that's a really, really good study tool. That's why I put it as a table like this. Or just print it out again, blank, and see if you can fill it out from memory, right? So I would suggest, again, take a look at this, watch the video again if you need to, but this is a very, very important study tool. I asked this a lot on the test, so make sure you learn it.